Episode 1, The Bed That Shouldn't Have Existed. I never believed in cursed objects. Not until I slept on one. The bed came to me by accident or maybe by design. I found it in a small estate sale outside of town. A decaying colonial house half swallowed by ivy. The woman who sold it to me was trembling, her hands wrapped in black cloth. She said it had belonged to her brother, who didn't wake up right. I laughed, thinking she meant a stroke or sleep paralysis. I wish she had. The bed was beautiful. Hand-carved oak, dark and heavy, with strange symbols etched along the frame. The Latin inscription across the headboard read Somnus est porta animarum. Sleep is the door of souls. I thought it was poetic. I didn't know it was literal. That first night, I remember how cold the mattress felt. Colder than the room, colder than logic. As I lay there, the springs sighed under my weight like something exhaling beneath me. The house was silent, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums. Then, just before I drifted off, I heard it, a soft creak. Not from the wood, but from inside the bed. Like a heartbeat. Slow, rhythmic, wet. I told myself it was the old frame settling. But every time I closed my eyes, the sound grew louder, closer, as if it were syncing with my own pulse. I turned on the bedside lamp. Nothing. The sheets were still, the mattress undisturbed. I forced a laugh, shut off the light, and finally fell asleep. And then I dreamed. But it wasn't my dream. I saw a narrow room with pale walls and no windows. A figure, a woman, sat on the edge of a bed identical to mine. Her hair hung in damp strings, her eyes open but empty. She whispered something I couldn't understand, a phrase looping over and over, until the words began to shape themselves into sound. Don't move. It listens. I woke with a jolt. My sheets were soaked, but not with sweat. There was moisture, cold, sticky, on my hands. When I turned on the light, I saw a small puddle near the foot of the bed, as if someone had stood there dripping. I searched the room, even checked under the bed. Nothing. No leaks, no footprints. Just that faint smell, like wet earth. I barely slept the rest of the night. By morning, I convinced myself it was a nightmare mixed with paranoia. I stripped the bed, cleaned everything, and promised myself I'd laugh about it later. But when I went to make the bed again, I noticed something carved into the wood near the headboard. Words I swear weren't there before. She never sleeps alone. That's when I realized. The bed hadn't just been dreaming. It had been awake. Episode 2, The Whisper Under the Springs. I told myself I wouldn't sleep on it again. But you know how the mind works, it negotiates with fear. Just one more night, I said, to prove I'm not losing it. By dusk, I had almost convinced myself the first night was stress, exhaustion, or my overactive imagination. The puddle, the whisper, the message carved into the wood. They had to have an explanation. Maybe I'd missed the carving before. Maybe the sound came from the old pipes in the wall. But that night, I noticed something new. When I entered the room, the air felt thick, like walking through breath. The faint scent of soil was stronger now. Moist, earthy, the way a grave smells when rain has just ended. Still, I climbed into bed. The mattress sighed beneath me like a living thing exhaling in relief. I turned off the lamp, and I waited. At first, there was silence, too perfect to be real. Then came a faint creak, the familiar sound of wood shifting. Another, then another. The rhythm was wrong, too deliberate, too alive. That's when I heard it. A whisper, soft, childlike, seeping up through the springs. It wasn't words, not yet. Just a hum, the way a sleeping person breathes a half-memory. I froze, my heart beating so loud it seemed to echo through the frame. Then it spoke. Not in sentences, but in broken syllables like a record scratched by time. Me. I whispered back, before I could stop myself. What? Silence. Then clearer right under my spine. Below me. Every hair on my body stood up. I sat upright, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. The light trembled as my hand did. Slowly, I leaned down and peered beneath the bed. Nothing, just shadows. But the smell, that heavy, wet soil, was stronger under there. And then, in the beam of light, I saw it. A small, dark shape pressed against the floorboards. I reached out with shaking fingers and touched it. Fabric. Old, rotting fabric. I pulled and it came free, a child's nightgown. Torn. Burned along the edges. The whisper came again. This time not from beneath me but from inside the mattress. Don't move. It listens. The same voice from the dream. I stumbled out of bed, dragging the mattress halfway off the frame. The springs groaned as if resisting me. And then, God help me, it groaned my name. Not screamed, not whispered, groaned, like the sound of wood forced to speak. Daniel. The voice was heavy, human, but wrong. Too deep, too slow, as if echoing from water. I ran from the room, slamming the door behind me. For hours, I sat on the hallway floor, shaking, staring at the handle, waiting for it to turn. It never did. But just before dawn, when I finally dared to look through the keyhole, I saw something that made my stomach twist. The bed had moved. Not by inches, by feet. It now stood against the opposite wall. And written on the floor where it had been was a line of dirt traced by a finger. Below me. Episode 3, A Dream That Wasn't Mine. I didn't remember falling asleep. All I remember is standing in the middle of a forest that shouldn't exist. The air was heavy, dripping with the scent of wet soil and smoke. The trees bent inward like ribs closing around a lung, and somewhere in the distance, something was burning. I was barefoot. My clothes were damp, my breath shallow. There was a bed in the clearing, my bed. The same carved oak frame, the same Latin inscription glowing faintly in the dark. But it wasn't empty. A woman lay there, motionless. Her skin shimmered like candle wax, and her hair stuck to her cheeks in long, black strands. When I stepped closer, her eyes snapped open. They weren't eyes. They were holes, deep, hollow pits filled with ash. She opened her mouth, and the sound that came out wasn't a scream. It was breathing. My breathing. Wake up, she whispered in my voice. And suddenly I did. I was on the floor beside the bed, drenched in sweat and dirt. The sheets were torn halfway off, claw marks streaked across the mattress. My feet, bare and caked with mud. Mud. But the window was shut. The door locked from the inside. I stumbled to the sink, splashed water on my face, and stared into the mirror. For a second, just one, I saw her reflection behind me. The woman from the dream. Wet hair, hollow eyes, smiling. I spun around. Nothing. Only the bed, silent now, pretending to sleep. The smell of smoke still clung to the air. I followed it instinctively, pulling the sheets aside, searching under the frame again. This time, I found something new. A small piece of paper tucked beneath one of the legs, brown and brittle from age. It was a photograph. A family of 3, standing in front of a fireplace. A man, a woman, and a little girl holding a stuffed bear. All smiling, but their eyes were wrong. Unfocused, empty. On the back of the photo, written in faint pencil, were 5 words. It dreams what we remember. That's when I noticed the ashes on my fingertips. The same fine gray dust that covered the woman's face in the dream. And before I could wipe them away, the bed groaned behind me. The wood creaked, the mattress shifted, and a puff of that same gray ash drifted into the air, settling at my feet like snowfall. Then, from inside the mattress, came the faint sound of a child laughing. A single whisper followed, soft and trembling, as if spoken from within a dream I hadn't yet entered. You saw her too. Episode 4, The Family That Slept Here Before. By the 4th night, I wasn't sleeping anymore. I only pretended to, lying motionless, waiting for the sound, the whisper, the next thing that would crawl out from that cursed wood. But the silence that night was worse than the noise. It was too deliberate, like the house itself was holding its breath. Even the wind outside had gone still. I sat up at 3:11 a.m., the exact time every strange thing had happened since the bed arrived, and decided to end the mystery. I had to know who owned it before me. The antique shop was closed, but I found the seller's number on the receipt. When she answered, her voice was weak, as if she'd been expecting my call. You bought it, she whispered. I told them no one should. Who's them? I asked. She hesitated, then said quietly, the family who died in it. I felt the blood drain from my face. What do you mean died? They burned, she said. All three of them. Father, mother, and daughter. Firemen found them still lying there, holding hands. But the bed wasn't burned. Not even the sheets. I could hear her breathing fast on the other end. They said their neighbors heard screaming the night before. The little girl kept saying, "It's dreaming again." I wanted to hang up, but something in her voice, something human and broken, kept me listening. My brother found it in the ruins, she continued. He said it was too beautiful to leave behind. He restored it, sold it to you. Then he stopped sleeping. Her voice cracked. I think it wants new memories. It feeds on the ones we forget. And then, before I could respond, the line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, the words feeds on the ones we forget echoing in my mind. I turned to look at the bed, still in the corner of the room. Only it wasn't in the corner anymore. It was closer, just a few inches, but closer. I checked the floor, no marks, no drag lines. But when I knelt down, I noticed something etched into the wooden leg, deep and uneven, as though carved by fingernails. 3 names: Eleanor, Peter, Grace, and under them one more word: still. That night, I sat in a chair facing the bed, refusing to blink, determined to prove I was still in control. But around 4 a.m., my eyelids grew heavy. I fought sleep until the last second, then lost. When I woke, I was lying on the bed, and beside me on the pillow were 3 small handprints pressed into the ash. Episode 5, the recording in the headboard. I hadn't touched the bed since that night, but it didn't matter. It was touching me. Everywhere I went in the house, I could feel it. Its weight, its presence, humming faintly in the walls like a heartbeat too deep to hear but too close to ignore. The air around it was always warmer, and that faint, sweet rot clung to everything I owned. That morning, when I opened the curtains, a ray of sunlight fell across the headboard. For the first time, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A thin slit in the wood, almost invisible, right where the Latin inscription curved, Somnus est porta animarum. Sleep is the door of souls. Inside the slit was something metallic. I reached in and pulled it free, a small, battered cassette recorder, the kind they used in the 80s. A red smear marked its corner, dried and flaked with age. I hesitated, then pressed play. The tape crackled, hissed, then a voice, male, trembling, gasping for air. Night 5. I can't tell what's dream anymore. The voice sounded ragged, desperate. It knows when I'm awake. If I try to move, the springs tighten like hands. I can hear it under me, breathing, counting. There was a pause, the faint creak of wood, a shudder, then a whisper, soft, not from the man, but from behind him. Stay still, Peter. I dropped the recorder. My stomach turned. Peter, one of the names carved on the bed. The tape kept rolling. It shows me things, the man stammered. Things I never lived. It dreams through me. I see people I've never met, dying in ways that feel real. And when I wake, there's ash on my hands. Another creak, a sob, then a violent crash, followed by the sound of springs twisting, metal bending, and one last whisper, barely audible beneath the static. Don't let it dream you back. The tape ended with a sharp click. I sat there for a long time, staring at the recorder. My reflection in the dark would look unfamiliar. Eyes hollow, skin pale. The same look Peter had in the photo. I picked up the recorder again. It was still warm. The battery compartment was missing its cover. Inside were 2 corroded batteries and a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it slowly, my fingers trembling. For words, written in frantic, looping ink. Night 5 is tonight. That was when I realized something that made my stomach twist. Today was the 5th night since I brought the bed home. And as I looked up, the headboard groaned softly, splitting along a fresh crack. From inside it came the faint sound of the tape rewinding itself. Episode 6, Fifth night. There's something cruel about knowing you're being watched, especially by something that doesn't have eyes. That entire evening, I felt it studying me. Every creak of the floorboard, every flicker of the lamp was a slow inhale from the bed. It was waiting. The words from the tape wouldn't leave my head. Don't let it dream you back. But how do you stop something from dreaming when it's the thing that dreams you? I decided I wouldn't sleep. Not a second. I brewed coffee, turned on every light, and sat in the armchair across from the bed, the cassette recorder clenched in my hand like a talisman. The bed looked harmless in the brightness, almost ordinary. That was its lie. Around midnight, the lights began to hum. The air grew heavy again. I checked my watch, 12:07 a.m., the same time Peter's tape had cut off. The temperature dropped so fast my breath fogged. I tried to stand, but my legs felt numb, as if the room had drained the blood from them. Then came the first sound. A faint, rhythmic thump, like a heartbeat pulsing through wood. The mattress moved, just slightly, as though someone had turned over in their sleep. The sheets wrinkled on their own. "No," I whispered. "You don't get to dream me." I took one step closer, and the lamp exploded. Darkness swallowed everything. In that pitch black, the room came alive with sound. The groan of the bed, the tightening of springs, and something soft sliding across the floor. The whisper came next, right at my ear. "Lie down." It wasn't asking. The air pressed against my chest, forcing me backward. My knees buckled. I crashed onto the mattress, the springs tightening beneath me like a net of steel wires. I struggled, but the bed held me there, breathing slow and deep under my body. Then the dream began. It wasn't sleep. It was possession. I was standing in a room that wasn't mine, the wallpaper peeling, the air thick with smoke. A woman screamed somewhere nearby, and through the smoke I saw the outline of a man holding a match. His eyes were blank. Ash fell like snow, and then I realized the man was me. I looked down at my hands, burned, shaking, covered in soot. The bed behind me was on fire, the sheets twisting like living things, reaching out for me as the whisper echoed over and over. "You are the memory now." I woke screaming. It was morning. The house smelled of smoke, though nothing had burned. The bed was cold, too cold. On the pillow beside me, someone had drawn a symbol in ash, a circle split by a line. Underneath it, a single word, "Remember." That's when I realized the worst part. The voice in last night's whisper. It wasn't the bed's anymore. It was mine. Episode 7, Blood on the Mattress tag. When I woke, sunlight filled the room, but it felt wrong. Too clean, too quiet, too staged. The bed looked exactly the same as always, perfectly still, perfectly innocent. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something beneath the sheets was holding its breath. I noticed the smell first. Not the usual damp soil, but iron, sharp, metallic, unmistakable. Blood. My hands trembled as I peeled back the blanket. Nothing at first. The white cotton sheet was spotless. But when I lifted the corner of the mattress to check underneath, I saw it. The tag. That small, rectangular label every mattress has, the one that says "Do not remove by law." Except this one didn't say that anymore. It was soaked in something dark. The letters were blurred, the fabric stiff. I thought it was old rust until I touched it. It was still wet, and written over the original text in a shaky hand were 3 letters, DMC. My initials. I froze. My pulse slammed against my throat. I hadn't written it. I knew I hadn't, but there it was, bleeding into the fibers, fresh and glistening. I tore at the tag until it ripped free. When it came off, a faint sigh escaped from inside the mattress, like the exhale of something that had been holding on too long. Then I saw it. Under where the tag had been, the mattress fabric wasn't solid. There was a slit, small but deliberate, stitched shut with black thread. Against all reason, I grabbed a pair of scissors and cut it open. Something fell out. A folded piece of cloth. Tattered, stiff and dark with age. When I unfolded it, I saw it wasn't just cloth. It was a sleeve from a white dress shirt, and embroidered into the cuff were the same 3 initials, DMC. I stared at it in disbelief. It wasn't just mine. It was mine. The pattern, the thread, even the burn mark near the buttonhole, I recognized it. Because I had thrown that shirt away 5 years ago. How could it be here? The air grew thick, heavy. The whisper came back, close to my ear but inside my skull this time. You were always here. I dropped the sleeve. My vision blurred, the room spinning. The walls seemed to breathe. The bed's carved Latin inscription glowing faintly through the wood. I backed away until I hit the wall. The smell of blood filled the air, overpowering, choking. The whisper grew louder. More voices now, overlapping, chanting in the rhythm of my heartbeat. Dreamed you, dreamed you, dreamed you. I looked down. My hands were red. My name, Daniel M. Carter, was written across my palms in blood. And on the mattress tag, where my initials had been, new letters began to form, fading in like smoke searing into fabric. Next, Episode 8, The Collector's Truth. The world outside my house no longer felt real. People moved, spoke, breathed, but I couldn't hear them clearly. Every sound seemed to come through a wall of water. Every shadow felt like it was watching me. I needed answers. Not superstition, not fear, truth. The woman who sold me the bed hadn't answered her phone for days. So I drove back to the estate sale house, a long-abandoned colonial on the edge of the woods. The gate was chained shut, the grass tall enough to hide bones. But someone had been there recently. The front door was ajar. Inside, dust covered everything, except for one thing. A desk, cleared of cobwebs, a single lamp left burning though the bulb barely glowed. Papers were scattered across the surface. Receipts, old deeds, and one yellowed envelope marked in trembling handwriting. For whoever takes the bed next. My stomach turned as I unfolded the letter. You think it's the bed that's haunted. It's not. It's the dream it carries. Every person who sleeps in it adds to the dream. Their pain, their memories, their deaths. It keeps them all. It was built by a collector, a man who believed sleep was the only time the soul could be stolen without sin. My hands shook as I kept reading. He called it the Keeper, a vessel for human essence. The bed doesn't kill you, it remembers you. And when it dreams again, it uses what it remembers to create new flesh. Below the writing, an old photograph slipped out. A man in a black apron standing beside the bed in a workshop. Behind him, on a table, lay the frame's carvings. Unfinished, each one etched with names. Hundreds of them. And the man looked like me. Not similar. Identical. The letter ended with one final line, written in frantic, slanted ink. When it dreams you back, it won't stop until it's perfect. A sudden noise snapped me from the page. A door creaking open upstairs. I froze. The air was thick with dust and rot. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, pacing the floorboards above me. Hello, I called out, my voice cracking. No answer. Just the sound of wood shifting. Then a soft, dragging noise, like fabric pulled across the floor. I moved toward the staircase, every step heavier than the last. When I reached the top, the smell hit me first. Iron and smoke. The bedroom at the end of the hall glowed faintly red. I pushed the door open. The bed was there. My bed. But I had left it miles away, locked in my own house. A shape lay on it under the sheets. Breathing. I approached slowly, trembling. My heart stopped when I saw the wrist. Pale, scarred, with a burn mark shaped like a circle split by a line. My mark. I pulled the sheet back. It was me. Dead or sleeping or something in between. The recorder on the nightstand clicked on by itself. My own voice spoke through the static. Welcome back, Daniel. The dream missed you. Episode 9, The Dream That Escaped. I don't remember leaving that house. I only remember running until the night folded over me, until the sound of my heartbeat drowned out everything else. But when I finally reached my own home, something was wrong. The air felt crowded. It was like walking into a room where someone had just been breathing beside you. The bed was still there, of course. Quiet, patient, as if it had never moved. The wood gleamed faintly in the dark, its carvings shifting in the half-light like skin under water. For hours, I just stood at the doorway, staring at it. I wanted to destroy it, burn it, tear it apart, anything, but the memory of the letter stopped me. It doesn't die. It remembers. I told myself I'd stay awake all night again, but exhaustion is a treacherous thing. It doesn't ask permission. It just takes. At some point, I drifted, not into sleep, into something deeper. When my eyes opened, I wasn't in the house anymore. I was outside, standing barefoot in the middle of my street. The sky above me shimmered red, like blood diluted in water. And there, through the window of my bedroom, I saw something impossible. Me, lying peacefully on the bed, eyes closed, breathing slow. I shouted, but the sound didn't carry. It dissolved into the air, muffled, as if I were behind glass. I tried to move closer, to climb back through the window, but every step forward made the distance stretch farther. The house was watching me. The curtains shifted even though there was no wind. The door creaked open on its own. And then I heard it. My own voice. "You shouldn't have left me here." The words came from the body on the bed, my body. It sat up, slow and deliberate, its head turning toward me with mechanical grace. Even from outside, I could see the eyes. Empty, reflective, like the surface of still water. "You gave me shape," it whispered. "Now let me live." The thing rose from the bed, and as it did, the room began to change. The walls pulsed, the floor rippled like liquid, and every reflection in the window fractured. One image of me splitting into dozens. I backed away, but the air behind me thickened like fog. A sound followed, something dragging against pavement. When I turned, I saw a long trail of ash leading from the front door to where I stood. The house door creaked open again. My reflection stepped through it. Not the version of me lying on the bed. This one was awake, pale, breathing heavily. Its hands were covered in blood, and as it reached for me, I realized its mouth was moving. But the voice came from inside my head. "It doesn't need to dream anymore, Daniel. It's awake now." Then, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was back inside. Morning light filled the room. The bed was empty, but in the reflection of the window I saw it, my other self, standing outside staring in. And this time it didn't fade when I blinked. Episode 10, The Sound of Bones Turning. Morning came, but it didn't feel like morning. The light that filled my room was pale, unnatural, like the memory of daylight, not the real thing. It washed over the bed, soft and cold, making the wood gleam like polished bone. I hadn't moved since I saw him, my reflection, standing outside. Part of me still believed it was a dream, some hallucination born from exhaustion and fear. But the footprints in the dew on the window told another story. They matched mine. Exactly. I decided to record everything. If I was losing my mind, I needed proof of it. I set my phone on the dresser and hit record, speaking out loud just to hear a human voice. Day 6. I think the bed's doing something new. I don't sleep anymore, but the dreams. I stopped. The bed groaned. It wasn't a creak or the wood settling. It was lower, heavier, almost mechanical, like something twisting inside it. I watched as the wooden frame trembled. The carved patterns seemed to move, rearranging themselves into new symbols, unfamiliar and obscene. Then came the sound. A faint, steady rhythm beneath the groaning, soft at first, then louder. Not breathing, not heartbeats, bones. The sound of them turning, bending, rearranging. I grabbed the phone and pointed it toward the bed. The camera struggled to focus. For a moment, I thought I saw fingers, long, thin, pale, pressing up from beneath the mattress. The fabric stretched, cracked, and fell still. "Who's there?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. The phone screen flickered. My own voice echoed back from the speaker, distorted, deeper. "You are." The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor. The recording kept playing, though I hadn't played it. It wasn't today's voice. It was older. Me from another time, another life. The bones won't stay where you put them. It remembers the order of the body. I stared at the bed in horror. The creaking grew faster, louder. The mattress began to rise and fall like something breathing beneath it. And then I saw it. The seams along the edges began to split, fiber by fiber. From the opening, something pale emerged, not flesh, not fabric, something in between. Bone white, but smooth like polished wood. It wasn't reaching out. It was forming. A hand, a wrist, a shoulder. The pieces sliding into place, turning and locking together like a puppet being assembled. I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. The voice from the phone whispered one last line, calm and final. "It's not trying to remember you, Daniel. It's trying to rebuild you." The lights flickered. The half-formed shape on the bed turned its head toward me, vertebrae snapping into place one by one, each pop echoing like knuckles cracking in the dark. Then it smiled, my smile, and whispered with my own voice, "Finally, I fit." Episode 11, Sleep Experiment. There's a point where fear stops being a feeling and becomes a condition. You don't just feel afraid, you live afraid. Every second, every heartbeat, every sound becomes proof that something is wrong with the world. That's where I was. I hadn't slept in days. The shadows under my eyes had turned purple. My hands shook even when I wasn't moving. I could hear the bed at night, creaking softly to itself like a thing that dreams even when you don't. But I had an idea, a desperate one. If the bed watched me when I slept, maybe I could watch it back. So I set up cameras, one at the foot of the bed, another near the door, and a third on the ceiling beam pointing straight down. I wanted proof, evidence, something I could show the world before I lost my mind entirely. At midnight, I sat on the floor, back against the wall, the cameras recording. The room buzzed with the low hum of electronics. I stared at the bed, waiting for it to move. Didn't. Hours passed. The air thickened. My eyelids burned. Every instinct screamed to stay awake, but exhaustion crept in like smoke. I told myself I'd close my eyes for a second. Just one. And that's when I heard it. The springs whispered. Not creaked. Not groaned. Whispered. Soft words, too faint to understand, woven into the hum of the room. My head nodded forward, my consciousness sliding like water through fingers. I dreamed, but not the way people dream. This one recorded itself. When I opened my eyes, it was daylight. The camera's red lights still blinked. Everything looked fine, too fine. Then I checked the footage. The first two cameras, static, uneventful. But the ceiling camera, the one pointed straight down, played something I still can't explain. At exactly 3:03 a.m., my body rose from the floor. Not jerked, not lifted, floated. My head tilted back, arms limp, mouth open. The bed's sheets rippled, and something under them moved, reaching up as if to catch me. Then, slowly, almost lovingly, it laid me down on the mattress. The sheets covered me on their own. And for a moment, both my body and the bed pulsed together, like one creature breathing through two lungs. When I woke, I had no memory of it, but the camera remembered everything. I replayed the video again and again, each time noticing more details. The faint outline of hands beneath the sheets, the way the carved symbols along the headboard glowed faintly with every breath I took. At the very end of the clip, the camera zoomed by itself onto my face, and my eyes were open. I looked directly into the lens and smiled. A knock echoed from somewhere behind me. I turned slowly to face the door. No one there. But when I turned back to the bed, the camera's red light was no longer blinking. It was green, recording, and from the speaker came my own voice, calm and distant. "Don't worry, Daniel. You sleep. I'll stay awake this time." Episode 12, The Woman Beneath. The strange what your mind learns to accept when terror becomes routine. The whispers, the shadows that breathe, even the creaks at night, once enough to paralyze me, had become background noise. But that morning, I woke to a sound I hadn't heard before. Scratching. Faint, rhythmic, coming from beneath the bed. I lay frozen, afraid to even breathe. The sound stopped as if it knew I was listening. Then 3 sharp taps, like fingernails against wood. I slid out of bed and crouched low. The air underneath was darker than it should have been. It wasn't just shadow, it was depth, like looking into a well. I aimed my phone flashlight under. At first, I saw nothing but dust and wood. Then something caught the light, a glint of metal, a small ring half buried in the floorboards. I reached for it, brushing away the dust, and froze when I realized what it was. A wedding ring. The inscription was still visible, though faded. "Till dreams do us part." The scratching started again, louder this time, from inside the mattress, the sound of nails tearing through fabric. I grabbed a knife from the nightstand and began cutting the mattress open. The blade dragged through the stuffing, releasing a wave of stench, sweet rot, like something dead too long to remember dying. Then I saw it. Hair. Long, black, and matted, coiled deep inside the padding like veins. I pulled, and something heavy shifted beneath. The springs moaned as I tore deeper. The stuffing gave way to skin, yellow-gray, stretched thin like parchment. I stumbled back, gagging. A face stared up at me through the torn fabric. A woman's face, eyes open, mouth sewn shut with black thread. Her lips twitched, the thread strained. And then, from somewhere beneath the bed frame, I heard her voice, muffled, distant, like a recording trapped underwater. "He made me dream forever." I fell backward, my hands slamming against the floorboards. The ring rolled from my palm, spinning before stopping beside her face. Her eyes moved. They followed the ring. The whisper grew clearer. "He said I'd be the last." The headboard groaned, the wood splitting down the center. From the crack, a dark liquid seeped out, thick, slow, dripping like sap. And then her arm moved. The mattress swelled as she pressed upward, the fabric bulging around her shape, fingers stretching through the cloth. "Please, let me out." But it wasn't a plea. Not really. It was invitation. The room filled with the smell of soil and iron. The floorboards pulsed, the air vibrating like the house itself was breathing through her. I backed toward the door, shaking, when something caught my ankle. Her hand, cold, slick, strong, pulled hard enough to drag me halfway back toward the mattress. The knife was still in my hand. I slashed blindly, screaming, severing her grip. When I stumbled free, gasping, I saw what I'd cut. Not flesh, wood. The bed frame now bore a new carving, fresh, wet, splintered. My name, Daniel Carter. Underneath it, etched in uneven strokes. "He made me dream forever. Now it's your turn." Episode 13, The Bed Remembers. There are stains memory can't wash away. And then there are those that wash you away instead. Since the night I tore open the mattress, the house hasn't stopped whispering. The walls breathe in rhythm with the bed's creaks. The mirrors sweat. The lights flicker like eyelids. Everywhere I go, I hear her voice. Not screaming, not crying, just whispering the same words, over and over. "He made me dream forever." At first, I thought she meant the man who built the bed. But now I'm not sure. Sometimes it sounds like she's talking about me. That morning, I found something I hadn't noticed before. The bed's wooden surface, once smooth, was now carved with new marks. Not just my name this time. Dates. Dozens of them. Each one spaced a few years apart, going back almost a century. Every few lines, a name. Peter, Eleanor, Grace. And beneath those, more names, more years. Until the last one. Daniel Carter. 2025. The date was today. I wanted to believe it was coincidence. But then I saw the last line, carved in smaller, trembling letters. "The bed remembers who it dreams." The words burned in my skull. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed gasoline, a lighter, anything that could erase the thing from existence. But when I returned to the room, the bed wasn't where I'd left it. It stood in the center now, perfectly aligned beneath the ceiling beam where the camera had once hung. The air above it shimmered, like heat over asphalt. Something was forming. Faint at first, a shape human but wrong. As if it had been sculpted from fog and half-finished memories. A figure rising from the bed, head bowed, hair dripping ash. I wanted to move, but my body locked. The whisper was back. Now not one voice, but many, overlapping like a storm of breath. "Sleep is a door. The bed remembers." He dreams again. The figure lifted its head. I saw my own face, but not the one I saw in mirrors. This version was tired, ancient, cracked like an old photograph. Its eyes were full of black sleep. "Why are you doing this?" I gasped, smiled, slow and empty. "Because you never woke up." The air thickened. The walls blurred, melting into the dark. My house was gone. I was standing in a corridor lined with dozens of identical beds, stretching endlessly in both directions. Each one held a body, each body mine. Some young, some old, some burned, stitched, buried beneath dust. The whisper grew into laughter, dry, cruel, and endless. I turned and ran, but every door I opened led to another room, another bed, another me, until I stopped, because one bed at the very end was empty, waiting. The sheets were already pulled back. The pillow had my name embroidered on it, and carved into the headboard, deeper than all the others. The bed remembers. The dream continues. Episode 14, The Night Without Dreams. I reached the point where I no longer wanted to know the truth. I only wanted it to stop. The whispering, the shadows, the reflection that wasn't mine. Everything had merged into one unbearable reality. I hadn't slept in days, afraid that the moment I closed my eyes, I'd never open them again. But the body has limits. Sooner or later, exhaustion becomes mercy. That night, I decided to end it on my terms. I crushed a handful of sleeping pills into a glass of whiskey, stirred it until the powder disappeared, and sat on the edge of the bed. The wood was warm beneath my hands, almost pulsing, alive. "I'm not your dream anymore," I whispered. The bed said nothing. It didn't need to. The silence was consent. I drank. The bitterness clawed down my throat. My vision dimmed around the edges, colors fading into gray. The world softened. I fell back onto the mattress, sinking deeper than I should have. For the first time in weeks, there were no whispers, no shadows, no sounds, just stillness. I thought I had one. Then I realized I wasn't sleeping. I was buried. The darkness pressed against me like wet soil. My lungs screamed, but when I tried to breathe, the air didn't move. My arms wouldn't respond. The weight above me wasn't a blanket. It was something else. A shape leaned over me. I couldn't see it, but I felt it. A body pressing against the mattress from below, rising, fitting itself into me like a second skin. A whisper filled the dark, calm and close, like someone speaking through my own mouth. "You wanted peace, so I'll give you quiet." The air around me shifted. The smell of soil filled my nose again, but this time it wasn't just smell. It was texture, taste, reality. I tried to scream, but no sound came. The whisper turned to laughter, soft at first, then louder, echoing through the dark like wind through hollow wood. "Even silence dreams, Daniel." When my eyes opened, morning light streamed through the curtains. I was alive, still lying on the bed, my throat dry, my head heavy, but breathing. For a moment I thought I had survived. Then I noticed the room. Everything was frozen mid-motion. The curtains caught mid-sway, the dust suspended in the air, even the light itself unmoving, locked like a paused film. And outside the window, nothing existed. No sky, no trees, no world. Just blank, gray fog pressing against the glass. I stood, heart pounding, and walked to the door. It wouldn't open. Behind me, the bed creaked once. And when I turned around, I saw myself still lying there. Eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The reflection smiled faintly and whispered, "You finally stopped dreaming, Daniel. Now the bed will dream for you." The air shimmered, and the world began to fade, sound first, then light, then thought. The last thing I remember before the dark returned was the soft creak of the bed's frame. It wasn't the sound of settling. It was the sound of breathing. Episode 15, The Bed That Dreamed of Me. There's a kind of silence that isn't peace. It's the silence of being forgotten. When I woke, the first thing I noticed was that my heartbeat didn't sound like mine anymore. It was slower, deeper, and it came from beneath me, not inside. I lay still, eyes half open, afraid to move. The ceiling above me wasn't the one in my house. It was old, wooden, damp with rot. Shadows of beams crossed over me like ribs. The smell, earth and blood, was stronger than ever. I sat up. The bed was in a different room. Stone walls, flickering light, no windows. A cellar or a tomb. And on the floor, surrounding me, were hundreds of photographs. Each one showed a different person lying on this same bed. Men, women, children. Some sleeping peacefully, others screaming. In every picture, the bed looked slightly different. Older. Hungrier. At the center of the pile was a final photograph. Me, eyes closed, mouth slightly open. But behind me, blurred in the background, stood something tall and human-shaped, its face hidden by the darkness. My hands shook as I picked it up. The whisper returned, so close it tickled my ear. You never left. I dropped the photo and stumbled back. My shoulder hit the headboard and the wood shivered. The carvings along its edge glowed faintly red, reshaping themselves into words. The dream remembers the dreamer. Suddenly, the air thickened. The floor beneath the bed began to tremble, and a deep, rhythmic sound echoed through the room. The same heartbeat I'd felt under my spine. I screamed and ran for the door. It wasn't there. The wall was smooth, solid stone. No exit, no escape. The whisper turned into something else. A voice, familiar and warm. My own. Don't run, Daniel. You made me. Let me be real. I turned. The figure from the photograph stood at the foot of the bed. Same height, same face, but the eyes were wrong. They glowed like embers under glass, flickering with faint light. The smile was calm, patient. You gave me body, it said. Now I'll give you rest. It stepped closer, and as it did, its skin rippled, like water catching fire. I backed away, but the mattress rose up behind me, forcing me down. The sheets coiled around my wrists, tightening gently, almost tenderly. I could feel it breathing beneath me again, deep and steady, pulling me closer with each inhale. The figure leaned in, face inches from mine. You built the bed to hold what wouldn't die, it whispered. And now it's dreaming you back. His hand pressed against my chest. The skin burned cold. My heartbeat slowed, then stopped. But I was still conscious, still thinking, still awake. And in that moment I understood. The bed wasn't cursed. It was alive. And I wasn't its victim. I was its maker. The voice inside my skull whispered the truth like a confession. You built it to keep your soul from ending. Now you'll stay until it forgets your name. The last sound I heard was the soft groan of the wood shifting above me. Not the sound of something dying. The sound of something dreaming. And when my eyes finally closed, I saw it. My body still lying there, while the bed exhaled in relief. Because it had finished dreaming me. Episode 16, The Missing Footage. They said the house burned down last night. Neighbors told the police they saw smoke pouring from the windows just before midnight. But when firefighters arrived, there was no fire, no heat, just a blackened shell of a home and a bed that refused to burn. I'm not supposed to know this, because officially I died in that fire. But I'm still here, somewhere between the smoke and the silence. The detectives found my cameras, the ones I used during the sleep experiment. Most of the footage was ruined, melted, but one file survived. They called it footage_16.mp4. They didn't release it to the public. They said it was unexplainable. I've seen it. The video begins with static, the image flickering between shadows. Then the room appears, the bed, the familiar walls, the dim lamp in the corner. I'm sitting on the mattress, facing the camera, eyes open, unblinking. I don't move, not for minutes. Then, slowly, the bed begins to breathe beneath me. The frame expands and contracts like lungs, the sheets pulsing in rhythm with my chest. A faint voice plays under the hum of the tape. He wanted to remember. The bed remembers everything. My face turns toward the lens. I smile calm, detached. Then I speak. But the voice that comes out isn't mine. It's layered, dozens of voices woven together. Men, women, children, all speaking in unison. We dreamed him back. The lights flicker. The camera shakes as if the house itself is trembling. Behind me, the shadow of the bed stretches across the wall. Too long, too wide, too alive. Then the screen cuts to black. A few seconds later, another scene. The same room, but the bed is empty. The sheets are soaked in ash. The camera pans slowly, shakily, until it faces the corner of the room. Someone's standing there. Not me. Not exactly. He's taller, thinner, his skin pale as wax, his eyes the color of cooled embers. He steps toward the camera. The sound distorts, every frequency bending around his voice. He's gone. I'm what's left. The video glitches violently, static, color inversions, and then one final frame. The bed again, perfectly clean, perfectly new, and lying on it, a body. Mine. The timestamp reads 3:07 a.m., the exact minute every strange thing began. The detectives called it tampered evidence. They locked it away, buried it in an evidence archive. But rumors say the file corrupts every system it touches, like it's still alive. Some people say if you play the video long enough, the static clears. And for a few seconds, the figure in the footage opens its eyes and looks directly at you. They never found my body. Only the bed, untouched by flame, humming softly, like it was dreaming. And every now and then, when the night goes still, some neighbors swear they hear it from inside the ruins. Faint click, a whirring sound, as if something is recording again. Episode 17, The Estate Sale again. Every story ends the same way, with someone pretending it's over. It's been 6 months since the fire. The house where Daniel Carter lived has been condemned, sealed off by the city. Locals say the place still smells like wet ashes and burnt dreams. They crossed the street to avoid it. But this morning, a white truck pulled into the driveway. 2 people climbed out, a young couple newly married, looking for furniture for their first home. They had seen an ad online. Antique oak bed, slightly burned, still intact. Vintage design, one of a kind. The seller's name was listed as the collector. They never questioned it. Why would they? Inside the ruined house, sunlight cut through the cracks of boarded windows, slicing the air into pale ribbons. Dust hung like mist. The bed stood untouched in the center of the blackened room. Solid, gleaming, waiting. "It's beautiful," the woman whispered. Her husband ran his fingers along the carvings. "Feels warm," he said, smiling faintly, "like it's been waiting for us." He didn't see the faint movement under the sheets. He didn't notice the initials carved faintly into the frame. DMC. The seller's voice echoed from the doorway. Smooth, calm, almost melodic. "It's a rare piece," he said. "Handmade by the original owner. No nails, no glue. Just wood and memory." They turned to look at him, but he was already gone. Only his shadow remained, stretched across the floor, fading toward the bed. The couple paid in cash. They laughed about the scorch marks, said they'd sand it down later. They didn't see the faint red glow pulsing beneath the wood, like a heartbeat hiding in the grain. That night, they brought it home. The woman insisted they place it in the center of the bedroom. "So it's the first thing you see when you wake up." She ran her hand over the inscription on the headboard, tracing the letters with a smile. "What does it say?" she asked. Her husband squinted. "Latin, I think. Something about sleep." She laughed. "Romantic." By midnight, the house was silent. The couple slept soundly, the woman's hand resting lightly on the edge of the bed. At 3:07 a.m., the sheets began to move. A slow ripple traveled from the foot of the mattress to the headboard. The wood groaned softly, stretching like something awakening from a long rest. The woman stirred, murmuring in her sleep. Her husband reached for her hand and froze, because the hand he touched wasn't hers. It was cold. When he opened his eyes, she was still asleep beside him. But another hand, long, pale, and gray as ash, was reaching up from between them. From the mattress, the husband screamed. The lights flickered. The whisper filled the room, soft as breath, ancient as the dark. "He dreamed you back." The woman sat up, her eyes wide open. Not awake, not alive. Her voice joined the whisper. Sleep is the door of souls. The camera mounted on their dresser, set up earlier to film their new home tour, captured everything. The next morning, when police arrived, they found no bodies, just the bed, perfectly made, and on the pillow written in faint red letters, "The bed that dreamed." Episode 18, The Dream Loop. No one ever really owns the bed. They only inherit its dream. The footage from the young couple's home was found 3 weeks later, discovered by a realtor trying to list the property. The file was nameless, just a timestamp, 3:07 a.m. First, the video shows nothing. The room is dim, peaceful, the couple asleep. Then, at the edge of the frame, the bed begins to move, breathing, pulsing, listening. A whisper fills the audio track. It's dreaming again. And then the camera dies. The file ends with one frozen frame. An image of the woman half awake, eyes open, staring straight into the lens. Her pupils are pitch black, her mouth slightly parted. And in the reflection of her eyes, there's another bed, another room, another dream. The police called it a glitch. They sealed the tape away, locked the house, sold the property to a bank. But the story didn't end there. It never does. Because last night, that same bed appeared again, half listed on an antique marketplace, its photos slightly blurred as if taken through glass. The description read, "Collector's piece, brings vivid dreams, must pick up in person." The seller's name was Daniel Carter. I know this because I saw the listing myself. I shouldn't have clicked it, but I did. And when the page loaded, the photos began to change. Each time I refreshed, the images grew clearer, closer, until I could see the reflection in the headboard. My reflection. It was me, sitting at my desk, staring at the same listing I was looking at. I slammed the laptop shut, but the whisper had already started. Not from the computer, from the room. "You wrote the dream. Now dream it again." I turned toward my bed. The sheets trembled as if something underneath had just exhaled. My phone lit up by itself, recording. The screen displayed those same cursed words. Somnus est porta animarum. Sleep is the door of souls. The whisper came again, closer, warm against my ear. Someone has to keep it alive. My vision blurred. The walls melted. The floor shifted beneath me. I tried to run, but every direction led back to the same room. The same bed, the same impossible sound of wood breathing through dreams. And then silence. The kind of silence that only happens when the dream resets. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my room anymore. I was lying on a bed. An oak bed. Hand-carved. Perfect. Ancient. Beside me sat a man with tired eyes and ash-gray hands. He smiled faintly and said, "Welcome back, Daniel." I looked down. The mattress beneath me was warm, almost alive. In the wood of the headboard, a new name had begun to carve itself letter by letter, curling, bleeding, writing itself from inside the grain. Your name, because you read this, because the bed remembers new dreamers. And somewhere, right now, the sound you hear beneath your own mattress, that soft creak, that breath that isn't yours, isn't the house settling. It's the bed, remembering you, and waiting for its next dream.
Epilogue. The dream never ends. They say stories die when the storyteller does. But what if the story learns to tell itself? Long after the fires burned out, long after the ashes cooled, the legend of the bed that dreamed drifted through towns like smoke no wind could carry away. People whispered it over campfires, uploaded it to forums, recorded their own versions for late-night podcasts. But none of them ever got the details right, because no one who's truly seen the bed is ever awake long enough to tell the truth. There's a rumor, one that never makes it into the articles, that sometimes late at night, the files about the case rewrite themselves. Police reports fill with names that weren't there before. Evidence boxes that should be sealed turn up empty, except for a thin layer of gray dust and a faint scent of soil. A few investigators vanished trying to study the original footage. One of them, the last one, left a note before disappearing. It read, "It doesn't live inside the bed anymore. It lives where it's remembered. Some say they've seen the bed listed online again. Different photos, different locations, but always the same words in the description. It dreams beautifully, sleeps silently. Others claim it's moved beyond furniture, that it no longer needs wood or fabric or springs. It just needs a place to rest, a mind tired enough, a reader curious enough. Because every time someone reads Daniel Carter's story, the dream stirs. Every time someone imagines the creak of its frame, the smell of wet soil, the faint breath under the mattress, it remembers the way back. And now, as you reach the final line, something ancient leans closer, pressing through the silence between your heartbeats, and whispers softly, almost tenderly, inside your ear, "Don't be afraid. Every bed dreams." Then the world goes quiet, but if you listen carefully, if you really listen, you'll hear it, that faint creak just beneath you, the slow, steady breath that isn't yours, the bed, dreaming you back,